Welcome again to our video about being woke to the third power, totally awake and not going back to sleep. This is something we really need to be able to do because you see, we live in a Neo-Feudal society. What do I mean by a feudal society, especially a Neo-Feudal society? Well, most of the Western culture, especially those that have been shaped by the colonizing nations, live in something like a feudal system. In ancient Europe, the feudal system was prevalent. They had a king, they had lords and governors who were called nobility. Everyone else was seen as peasants. The peasants belonged to the land, and when the landlords bought and sold land, they sold the peasants or the people with the land. The people then had to work for this lord, and depending on how the lord was, they had to give up a certain amount of money and time and the food that they grew in order to stay on the land and to stay healthy and not be killed or beaten mercilessly by the knights, who were a lower form of nobility, the warriors and the police. Now we live in a place that doesn't look like that, of course. All that has shifted is that the people on the lower levels are now able to move into the nobility range more easily, and they pass money or cash up instead of food and the goods that we work for. It's like a machine now. And now the lords have become the business owners and the corporations, and we still have the governance. Instead of one king, we have many governors, mayors, senators, representatives, presidents, and so on, who are seen as being of more worth and value than we are. Our money is passed up for taxes at every level. The city level, the state level, the county level. And if we do not pay those taxes, we are either thrown into jail for the rest of our lives, and everything that we have is confiscated. How do we stop this from happening? Working hard for a boss who has total power over our lives. This boss can tell us what to do and when to do it, and if we disagree, we can be fired, cast out, so we can't make a living anymore. We won't have any money, we can't have any resources, and if that person gives us a negative reference, we may never be able to make a decent living again. And so, even though it looks like we have made progress, moving from feudalism to capitalism, we find that capitalism is yet another form of feudalism, made to look different. But all of the players and the way of doing things are the same. We have been kept in this box of feudalism, you see. And the strange thing is that this extends to our minds and our spiritual lives. We are kept in boxes, and as long as we can be kept in a certain box, we can only think within the parameters of that box. When we go outside of that box, we are made to feel foolish. We are in a box now of material science, a type of science that was developed in the late 1800s. There was a battle between the church and the scientific community for power over the people, the peasants. At that time, science, using Darwinism, made a total blow, a painful blow against the church. And at that time there was an unofficial bargain where the church would deal with spiritual matters and religious matters, and science would deal with all that was physical, material, what we could see and measure. As time went on, what science did was begin to propagate the idea that everything was material. So they could take over spirituality. They could take over every religion. They could take over the history of religions. And that is the world we live in now. One where we believe that everything is material when in actuality we know that it is all energy and not material. But this battle was not for the freedom of human beings. It was not for knowledge or wisdom. It was so one group of the elite could have power over the rest of us. And as long as we live within their box, the box of material science, we can be manipulated. We can be used. We can be told and taught not to tap into the power that we have as human beings that exist in greater, larger realms than just the little brain that exists in our head. We can be turned away from understanding that there are things that cannot be measured by science, even when we experience such things. And if too many people experience such things, things that science cannot measure, all of a sudden science runs ahead, picks up the flag, pretends to be experts on it when they're latecomers. This is truth about cosmology. This is true about the discussions in the Vedas about the way the universe is. This is true about the number of planets that the Anunnaki writings had. Many different experiences that human beings have had for centuries and centuries, and then all of a sudden science comes out with the idea that they have discovered all of these things. It is all a ploy to own one power that is most important, the power to define reality. And if we are not willing to break free of their definition of reality, if we are not willing and able to define the premises or the basic belief system, they will always be able to manipulate us through the use of logic. Truth is that if you have premises that are false, the logic can be perfect, but the outcome is still false. And that is the state right now, not only in science, but also in many religious institutions and many parts of our lives, because we are locked in this paradigm in the United States. And this paradigm says that we have no worth unless we have power over people. And the only way that our worth is defined is by the system, the powerful people recognizing us. Some people have found a way to get around this. They use their gifts and their talents, and they begin to be recognized by a small group of people, but then the powerful and the elite make deals with them that will invite them into the club. This is the way of this nation and most of the world now, but there is a way to break free from that. The way to break free from it is by realizing who we are and the divine nature that we have. There are many practices for this, buried in various religions. But many of the religions have claimed these practices and said that only people in their club can use those practices. They accuse people of stealing those practices. People who are in pain, who are hurting, who connect with a certain way of doing things and a certain way of worship, and who do this to help heal themselves from the pain and suffering this world brings are accused of culturally appropriating and stealing things when these people are only trying to make it in a world that is so horrible, harsh, and painful. If one takes some type of teachings from a group, pretends as though one has made them up, and goes out and makes a fortune from that, and says that it is better the way they do it than the originators, I would say that is appropriation. But if one uses those things to raise oneself to a higher level, and from a higher level begins to live out those things and to teach those things to people who are in pain and suffering and hurting and who need to be healed, that's a different story. That is breaking out of the box. And that is when a person becomes a danger to a system based on money, gain, and profit. But if we want to make any changes in the world, and if we really want to heal people who are broken, create life and love and joy wherever we go, we are going to have to find those practices that touch us and heal us and rise us, make us raise up to a higher level. We have to take care of ourselves, regardless of what people say who have claimed these ways of being. Because you see, when it comes down to it, this journey into the earth and out is a personal journey. It's one where we must care for ourselves and our spiritual growth and not really depend on other human beings to do so. If we do not do this, we will be trapped in this plane of existence, trapped in the belief systems of material science and some of the false religions who have become more like multi-level management networking corporations than vehicles to make one rise to a higher level. It's time to go out of the box, to explore things that we have been told are ridiculous, or things that we are not allowed to touch because of our race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or the many other reasons that we have been given in order to stifle us. So, woke is about being aware of these things, yes, and being a warrior. It's about going deeply into the matrix, digging through it, and finding the pieces of gold that is there, claiming them, holding on to them, and letting go of the nonsense to live a life of truth, wisdom, passion, and peace. Stay woke. Don't listen to anyone. Explore the universe yourself by studying books or reading or looking at YouTube videos, but most importantly, learn to sit, to meditate, to be still, to see all of the thoughts and feelings and things that are arising, but to let them go, knowing that these things are the things that have been planted within each and every one of us from the time we are born. And eventually, what happens is we will begin to hear the thoughts of our own hearts, the thoughts of the divine, goddess, God, whatever you would call it. And when we hear that voice, we will recognize it, not by the way it sounds, no. We will recognize it by what it says. Thanks for being with us. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe, hit the bell so you can get notifications and give us a thumbs up. We'll be coming back again soon with another video. Namaste, everyone.